she said, I need to give you some advice. And I said, sure. People are going to call you a bitch. Do not change anything that you're doing. From day one, I have been my authentic self, but I'm going to call out things when I see them. Everybody's allowed at the table. And guess what? If there aren't enough seats, scooch over. We're going to make room for another seat.
On today's episode of the Restaurant AI Podcast, I am joined by Erin Levzow, one of the most innovative marketers in the industry today. Erin's career spans from Las Vegas casinos to national brands like Wingstop, Del Taco, and the Museum of Ice Cream, where she's helped shape their marketing and create unforgettable experiences for their guests. In our conversation, we dig into how AI is transforming restaurant marketing, from personalization to voice technology to the ethics of data and the balance between automation and authenticity. If you've ever wondered how the best marketers think about the next era of hospitality, this is the episode for you. Before we dive in, a special thanks to our sponsor, ClearCOGS, helping restaurants make smarter decisions every day through predictive and prescriptive forecasting. Because the path to greater profits is always clearer when you know what's ahead. And if you're enjoying these episodes, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen. With that, I give you my conversation with Erin. Erin, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, look, I'm excited to dig into the world of marketing, something that's near and dear to my heart. But even for me at an AI company, I find the amount of data that's involved in marketing to just be overwhelming. So before we dig into everything, I'd love just a sense of, you've been in the restaurant industry and marketing positions for decades. Like, walk me through where we were, where are we today?
Oh, Lord, that's a big question. Where were we? I mean, restaurants in general have always been behind. So I came out of, 10 years in casinos in Vegas and hospitality and Atlantic City. And then my first job in restaurants was Wingstop, outside of restaurants in Vegas, in the hotels.
By the way, do you even have to do marketing for the hotels in Vegas, or do people just come to you and give you their money?
Oh, I wish. But because there's so much room inventory, it's actually really cutthroat. The same way restaurants are really cutthroat, but different for restaurants, you get to eat multiple times a day. It's your number one decision of how many that you make in life is what you're going to eat. And we eat multiple times. We might only go to Vegas once, twice. I'd like to go more a year. And so you have all this room inventory. And when it's really busy in Vegas, it's great. But when it's not, you're fighting out. And so I always told people, we're not just selling a hotel room, because then you're just fighting for the lowest number. You're the Walmart of hotel rooms. Instead, we're selling an escape. We're selling a release of your inhibitions. We're selling the ability to have everything you've ever wanted and live the great life when you're here, and how you're going to feel really special. And in order to do that, you have to talk to a person. So one-to-one marketing. Well, in this case, restaurants are just catching up to where Vegas was with their data analytics. So we wanted to know everything about our customers in Vegas. We wanted to know how much they played, how long they were going to play, what's the propensity that they're going to keep playing, when are they going to run out of money, are they habitual gaming or addictive behavior folks? What leads us to believe that is how they hit the buttons and what that looks like, where they like to sleep. Why are they paying cash today versus they used their credit card yesterday? Because, that's not the same person with them. There's lots of things we wanted to know and keep tabs on. And old school days was your host, your VIP host at a casino would know those things. They'd keep a little black book and they'd be like, Matt likes this. He likes to do this. He likes to do this. He likes pillows. And he's always going to have a different person with him each time he comes to Vegas. Got it. All right. How are you doing? And then we started to be able to data structure that and build data sets around that. And that became really exciting. And now you knew who to send what offer to. And why was I getting a free room night stay and you were only getting a free buffet? Well, chances are you weren't as likely to spend as much money in the casino as I was. So they do track all those things. But then you go to restaurants, my first foray.
I was going to say, give me the juxtaposition, because that sounds amazing. You're selling the dream. You've got all the data. I imagine with Vegas, you've got a pretty good marketing budget because, getting the right guest booked really matters. And then you transition into restaurants. That's got to be a breath of A bucket of cold water?
It was definitely different because in Vegas, I worked at Caesars Corporate, MGM Corporate, and then Palms and Palms Place. And you just had everything, right? We had the best restaurants in the world in Vegas. We had the best shows in the world in Vegas. We had it all at our fingertips. And then I decided I didn't want to raise my kids in Vegas. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But the first time my daughter said, "What's 6969, babe?" I said, "That sign says we're moving." So I was recruited to Wingstop in Dallas. And I will tell you, as exciting as free room nights at hotels and free shows and free dinners are, I wasn't sad about free wings. They're pretty good. So Wingstop was wonderful. I loved everything about it. But when you get there, you realize like, well, where's your data? Well, a lot of people walk into our restaurants. Okay, great. Why aren't we getting data about them? Well, POS lives over here in IT and they don't like to hand over the data. Okay, well, what does marketing have? Marketing needs to build online ordering. What do you mean we don't have online ordering, right? Like, so there's like all these surprises that were around every turn that was like, well, this is really complicated. Why do we do it this way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. All right, cool. And you still sometimes hear that. That's the way we've always done it. Or if it's not broke, why are we trying to fix it? Well, because there's a better way. I've seen the other side. And so being able to bring that data first approach, that ability to tie systems together and really see and try and paint a picture of a customer and then talk to them. Because again, people are like, well, you're just selling wings. And I was like, no, we're selling a crave. Like you could go anywhere and get wings. Wingstop, let's be honest, not the cheapest wings you're ever going to eat. And my kids love to eat them a lot. But we're selling a crave. We're selling a better product. We're selling something you want to be a part of, to get at life, to attack something. You eat wings with your elbows on the table. You don't eat them and you get messy. You don't eat them like with a fork and a knife or like as a side. They're now can be the main part of your plate. So it was a lot of fun to be able to
It's a wing night. You're looking forward to it.
Exactly.
But I think the one thing that you run into is, I mean, there's something in the DNA for most restaurants where like it's operations first. If you serve a great product, you will get customers to continue to come and they'll tell your friends. And if you serve a bad product, no matter how good the marketing is, they're not going to come back. I don't know how much of that is actually true or not, but I feel like that's part of the DNA.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that it used to be that way for sure. I think where we're going and we're starting to see, this is where you're seeing a lot more CMOs become CEOs, is because how Domino's came out and they said, we're a marketing technology company. We're not. We happen to sell pizza, right? And you're starting to see a lot more of that because having a good product, having a good operation, that's the baseline. You better have that, right?
Or not. I mean, I think we sat there at Jimmy John's and said we were an operations company, and you'd look across the street at a Subway and you'd say, well, they're really a marketing company that happens to sell sandwiches. They seem to do okay.
Yeah. So I think it should be marketing first, because if you have a good product, it's like, all right, how are you telling people? How are you getting them excited? How are you getting that share of stomach, right? How are you not just capitalizing? And I still see to this day, a lot of restaurants go, we do really well, but then we have seasonality. And you go, okay, that means you're not how are you analyzing your marketing dollars? Because you shouldn't really have a ton. There should be some variability. But if everybody else goes down only a little bit during that time and you plummet, you're doing something wrong, right? That's a marketing problem. And it's great because operators always like to say, we have a marketing problem when sales are low, but when sales are high, it's like operations is killing it. And you're like, no, we did a good job too. Tell us that. So we like compliments, but I do think it's evolving. I think if you can do a marketing story first, what's the story you're telling? Why are you telling it? Not just good food. It's what's in it for me. I want to go support a restaurant that I feel passionate about or that's consistent all the time. Like, what does that look like? That's the story you have to tell. And we're seeing more and more companies lean into that.
Okay. So I'm always curious about this because if I could have gone back to being a franchisee today, we did a lot of grassroots guerrilla marketing. We give out samples. but we didn't do anything on social media. So I was never telling my story as a local business owner. Instead, it was the franchisor telling the story. And I think that there were some things with Jimmy John's that people didn't like. And so we'd get people to be like, I will never eat there. You're some horrible chain. And it was like, no, I'm a local business owner who's supporting the community. How do you feel about franchisees telling their story, which is kind of letting, I don't know, the opening Pandora's box in some way, but also very grassroots, telling the story of individuals?
That's a really good question. So I will tell you, on the corporate side, we like to control everything. On the franchisee side, they want to control everything unless they don't want to. And I don't think a lot of the common public understands franchising. They don't. They assume that if I walk into a Jimmy John's, it's all Jimmy John, right? This is all Jimmy John. There's a picture of Jimmy John on the wall. It's all Jimmy John. They're not thinking this one's owned by Bob and that one's owned by Mark. That's not what they're thinking, nor do they necessarily want to think that. Now, they do from an LSM standpoint of, did that Jimmy John's back the local baseball team or the local youth soccer team? That's exciting for them, but they're still not thinking, well, that's Bob's restaurant, Jimmy John. Nor as a corporate entity, do you necessarily want that. You want, and if a franchisee is like, well, I want it to, I don't know, I've had franchisees before be like, I know we don't sell cookies, but I'm starting to sell cookies because I think they're going to do really well. And you're like, no, this isn't like Joe's Wings and shit. Like, you bought into a brand that you want to celebrate and you want to be part of that brand. Instead, lean into marketing efforts that celebrate that tell that story, and not necessarily your own. Now, I could start to argue the opposite viewpoint. If, let's say, you own an entire market and you have 70 of those restaurants within like a 5-mile radius.
But at that point, you're not a local business owner anyways. Right, you're a big corporation.
Exactly. So it really varies, but I truly think from a corporate standpoint, but social media is still important. How are you telling that story at a local level? Not necessarily the franchisee's personal story, but that restaurant concept's story at a local level.
If you were to be able to take the infrastructure that was in place at a Caesars and put it in a restaurant, what capabilities does that really unlock for that restaurant?
Well, we're starting to get there. I do see that very close to happening already. Being able to tie all that data together to see that one view. We always said in Vegas, it was like your 360 or your golden record. Actually being able to see that in real life in restaurants. We're so close. There are a few out there that are doing it, but still very few. And
who's doing it best?
I feel like Domino's does a good job because they know you, they know what you want. They're still toying with it. I think there's a concept out of Florida called Cali Coffee that does it really well, understanding their consumer and what they like. And it turns out people go, well, coffee is so simple. It's actually incredibly difficult because the way I take my coffee and the way you take your coffee is not the same. And I don't want to have to keep reordering and someone get it wrong. I want to like one-click reorder like I can do. The reason I still have gone to Starbucks in some cases, partly because I don't have Cali coffee here, but I go to Starbucks because, okay, I just reordered. Now I'm going to drive there and it will be ready. And I didn't have to talk to anyone. I got my coffee the way I wanted it and it was quick and easy, right? So that is working because they know what drives me as a consumer, and that one look view. And if restaurants could actually know what their customers order, when they order it, why they order it, how, and make it easy for them to continue to order it, and then upsell them, send them customer journeys, send them challenges. Those all build on each other to drive sales and revenue.
And I assume that that is based on like cohorts or different market segments. This person gets it once a week and they're a black coffee person. We want to market them to come twice a week and we're going to give them a free coffee or something.
But that's when it's not even segments anymore. It's not even borderline micro segmentation. We're actually bordering in on personalization, which hardly anybody does. But when you get there, if there were 10 of us in a line, I almost guarantee all 10 of us take our coffee differently, right? I'm going to get a large latte with, I only want 3 pumps of vanilla, but I want it to be as skinny as possible because I think I'm fat, right? Like there's so many different things happening for each of us. Now, like your example, well, I order 1 time a week. So I want to increase your frequency, but this person orders something completely different. But when they order once a month, it's a much larger order. And this person orders something completely different, but they come in twice a week, but still a lower order volume. So now I have different levers to pull, right? I want to increase their average ticket if I can. I want to increase their weekly frequency if I can. And you do that through actual personalized marketing based on the time that they walked in or they ordered on the app or online. And you start to trigger life cycle journey campaigns. So I'm on a different journey than you're on. Same idea, always to increase, because in restaurants, we only ever want to increase average ticket and frequency. No one's ever like, you know what I really want to do? I want to get more people to post on social. Yeah, that's great. But if that doesn't drive revenue, I don't really care. End of the day, increase my average ticket, increase my frequency of my customer coming in.
All right. Well, since this is the Restaurant AI podcast, I'd be remiss not to bring up AI. And this is one of those scenarios where AI tends to be a really good option. We're doing lots of individual A/B tests. We're optimizing for a specific goal. Choose the right route or path. Is that where we're at today? Is that technology being used? How so?
So you can do A/B tests. A/B tests are great, especially if you need to report out, just like if I send lifecycle journey marketing versus not sending it. How does it work, right? And you separate it. But even in those two groups, you still have AI being utilized to talk to the whole right person, right time, right place thing versus, again, there are still executives out there who will say, how do I know my marketing's working? I was like, I just showed you. And they go, what if I turned it off? Would it still work? And you're like, well, let's test it. Let's see what happens. Are you willing to risk that? Let's go. And I've always been willing to risk that. Let's turn it off and see what happens. And it turns out I'm typically correct. There's very few cases I haven't been. And then on top of that, there's multivariable testing. And that's what AI is empowering, not just in email, SMS, customer journey, lifecycle mapping, but in programmatic, how you buy advertising online and digital advertising, all the way down to like digital out of home boards. Now we really can do more of that multivariable testing when it comes to multiple different types of creative that I know people are going to start responding to. So now not just 2 that I may be testing, I have 20, but now on top of it, I have 20 different pieces of copy that I can also overlay on that, whether through Meta or Google or PMax. And
all right, you got to
intertwined.
For me. You got multivariable testing being powered by AI. What does that actually mean? How does that work?
It means that what used to happen is I'd have to get out an Excel sheet and I would have to go to a media company and I'd have to say, I want to give you 40 pieces of creative. And they were like, well, who's building all these creative? And there wasn't an easy way. I didn't have AI to build me 40 pieces or iterate off of 40 pieces. I literally had to go to a graphic designer and say, all right, on this one, I want the word in this corner. And on this one, on this corner, but the person, I want this person to be with this person. Now on this one, make this person this, because you didn't know what was going to resonate. And then I'd have to go to the copywriter and say, I need 40 different variations of copy. Just tweak it slightly. So this one's going to be like, the grand opening event is da 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 da. And this one, I want it to start with like, we're open and do it this way, right? Because you don't know what's going to resonate. And then I'd have to put it all in a spreadsheet. And now you have to take 40 times 40, which is,
like
I don't know.
Factorial. I was trying to do the math on that. I have no idea.
Not math, right? 10 times 10, 100. Okay, whatever it is, right? So basic level, you have 10 pieces of creative, 10 pieces of copy. There's over 100 variations that could come out to be. And so I have to map them all into the hundreds of variations. And then I have to send that off to the media company and say, now I need you guys to program all these hundreds of different variations and then tell me, and then break in segments that you're going to go out to on the internet and then tell me which one performs better. Good luck, right? Like, and they'd come back and we're like, well, we think this one with 2 people and the word in the right-hand corner mixed with this copy did the best. Now we can do that literally in the matter of seconds and how we set those up. You can hand AI, whatever you want to call it, a system, a piece of creative and say, iterate this different many versions with this different many things. It does it. I no longer have to go to a graphic designer to build 40 different pieces. I can have it write 40 different pieces of copy very quickly. I can push it over. It can, or even some of these systems like Mecca can do a lot of this and break it up for you. And then they don't have to hand report. They come back and they go, Here's what works. This version second, this version's third. And you're like, all right, and all it really should do for a restaurant is tell them, all right, I'm ready for my next test. Because there's no final answer in all of this. The answer is whatever works now might not be what works tomorrow.
Okay, so then this brings up a really interesting point. As a marketing executive, is your job a curator of taste to come up with the right 40 different areas? Or is your job to be a data analytics person to just let them jack up the number and let's find what works?
Mm-hmm. So I think there's two parts of that. One, as a leader in marketing, you have to know the story you're telling, right? The brand ethos. And we call that like the red thread. What's the story we're telling? You don't want, because if you don't feed the story in, it's not going to know what to churn back to you. So you have to be smart enough to like teach it who your brand is, what your story is. Then yes, it's a lot of data analytics. And that's why I love this, but a lot of times I always say we chose the hardest job as marketers, right? There's no harder job than being a marketer because everyone thinks they're a marketer.
Yeah, I totally hear that.
I've had someone say like, if I wasn't an attorney, I always thought I had a knack for marketing. And I'm like, oh, I went like I've studied this, like years of experience, but it makes sense that we're basically at the same level. And so everybody's going to give you an opinion. And the best thing you can do is go, great opinion. I'll test it. I'll let you know it works. And we can do that now very quickly, very easily. And then I can be like, oh, bummer, that idea you had didn't check. And sometimes in those cases, I'm actually proven wrong. Like, yeah, no, that had some legs and I was able to utilize that. So taking it and immediately dropping pieces into test, we can do faster than ever.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to do our marketing. And I had those exact same feelings. And I used a similar line where I'd basically say, hey, I'm not the target market. Yeah. You're not the target market. Neither of us know. We'll just follow what the data says. And I constantly catch myself. We have Sarah that does our marketing now. She's fantastic, saying, first off, Sarah, I don't know. Like, I'm not a marketing person, but how about this? And I almost feel bad doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if hopefully she responds with, cool idea, let's test it. Right? Like, great. We'll throw it in the test, in the mix. Now, if someone does bring me an idea and it is completely different than the ethos of the brand, then yeah, I'll push back on something like that. If they're like, I know we sell apples, but what if like once a week we start selling oranges? And I was like, well, we're an apple orchard, so that might be weird. Do we have any orange trees? Something like that. And like, basic example, but that does happen where they're like, what if we do this crazy thing? And you're like, that doesn't fit with our brand, actually.
So women in marketing, it's an interesting subject because when you look at what you're saying, where there is, okay, we need to do the data analytics side, which in large part, multivariate testing is being done. What I actually heard you say is you need a lot of unique perspectives in the room when it comes to defining the customer journey, the experience, what story are we telling? Because frankly, we don't know what'll resonate. But if we just take a myopic view and go down one road, we're never going to know what other roads we could go down. I imagine that women in marketing offer a very unique perspective in an industry that is largely dominated by men.
I would like to think we do. I know that there's a lot of studies that show that women typically have a higher emotional intelligence for whatever reason, that we have sometimes led with empathy or sympathy and care. I don't know if all of that is true. I know there's studies that talk about that, but I do think it gives a different perspective or a perspective of what might happen. And again, doesn't have to be women or men. It could be all different perspectives at the table. Like, how does this resonate with you? Especially if you're testing out a story worth telling. How does this resonate? What does this make you feel, think? And you're going to have people who are like, I don't want to feel. I just want to think. That's okay. There are lots of people in the world like that. And you're going to have the same with right and left brain. But you want all that different perspectives because that's how you're able to see that full picture that sometimes you can't see if everybody looks the same at the table.
So prior to this, somebody had to go put together 40 different visuals and 40 different messages. There was, and that's a skill set, right? You learn what's good, how it should look, what's worked in the past. Do you sit here and wonder, am I the last great generation of marketer, and that the kids today will never have that experience because they're just going to be doing the super high level, what's the story I want to tell, and using AI to facilitate all the mid-level tasks?
Not at all. I actually think they're going to pass us up or pass me up. And I used to be one of them that felt like I was passing up other people very quickly because one, it changes every day. So that means the great thing about where we are in the world and how technology changes so quickly means if you don't keep learning, you're going to fall behind. And that goes for, it doesn't matter how old you are, your gender, whoever you are, it's about always continue learning. Because the moment you start to go, we've always done it this way, or, well, history tells me, you're already wrong. You're already wrong. Because that's how fast technology is changing and evolving. That's why we have conferences where people walk around tech floors trying to learn. Why CES exists is like teaching us about things we didn't even know were possible. And when are they going to get to the mass audience and the mass appeal? And so if you're not always learning, you're behind. So no matter if you're 20 years old or 60 years old, if you have a different viewpoint in how you look at the world and you can always continue learning, you could be in the front of it.
All right. Paint me the Mecca. One-to-one marketing. We're reaching the right person at the right time with the right message. What does that world look like, and how far away are we?
Well, I think we're real close. So it depends on if you're trying to get the customer in the door or if they've already come in the door. So let's say we're just working on acquisition. So the idea is I need to know you before you know you. I need to know you want something before you realized you want it. And so think of like buying a car. I don't know that you're in the market for a car right away. You don't know you're in the market for a car. But what I do know is the age of the current car you own. I know how many miles are on that car you own. And I start to do some math. It's the same as like life insurance and how they decide if you're at risk to die, right? I do some math on when that car is going to die. I can power all that through AI. So if I know you have a Kia, like 1995, I'm making this up. I actually don't know anything about cars, but this is right? But
somebody in your life has a 1995 Kia, though.
Yeah. And in your Kia, everything on the internet tells us that the engine brakes around this mile to this mile, and that most people, when that happen, change their car out. I know that because that's all in a database. You can do an append, that in a trade area. Now I go find where do those people live, because you can append addresses. And now I go target them with media dollars and I send them all this car stuff. They don't even know that they need a car yet, but I know that in the next 3 months, their car is going to break down. And so now they're getting this and they're like, have you heard of this car? Like we should go did you even know there was a dealership? I've driven past this dealership my whole life. Didn't even know it was on the corner there. And they're like, oh yeah, we should stop. We should go. But now I've really targeted in on who's going to be looking for a car. And now I'm trying to convince them not only should they come to me for the car, but it's this type of car, right, that they want.
It's the marketing version of Inception. You're planting the seed. They're going to wake up one day, that car's going to break down. They're going to be like, that Kia Stingray, like it's a good looking car.
How did they know? How did they know? Right. It's so crazy. And you can do things like that the same way that you see this all the time in communities where someone's like, I got this direct mail piece. What did you get? Well, my direct mail piece was about getting life insurance. My neighbor's direct mail piece was about setting up funeral arrangements. And they're like, how did we get two different nail pieces? I was like, well, you're 85 years old and you lived in this house for the past 35 years, all information that's public. And me, I'm a lot younger. And it turns out I'd like to sustain living for a lot longer. And they know I have kids and I need life insurance.
Okay. So I love this conversation because I think you're right. And I think we're getting there. So let's fast forward 5 years. Everybody knows my car's going to break down. I got a 2010 truck with just about 200,000 miles on it. Now it's on the record. I'm sure that it'll get flagged. They're all going to know my truck's going to die in, I don't know, it's a Ford. It should last for a long time. But I don't know, 7 years. Now all of a sudden, I'm going to get pitched the perfect pitch from every company all at once at the right time. and it becomes noise again.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Do we live in a world where once everybody can reach you perfectly with the perfect message, all of a sudden it goes to zero and I'm back to asking my next door neighbor what car they bought last time?
So you just explained a similar concept, which is called like the jam study. So the jam study, you go into a grocery store, they set out 26 different types of jelly. And they said, if you decide, you can try all 26. If you decide to buy one of these, we'll give you $2 off the $3 jelly. And you're like, it's a pretty good deal. You try them, but it's a little much. So the next day they sold some. Next day they test only doing 4 jellies. And my numbers, it's a study, but my numbers, I know it's 26 to like 4 or 5. They put out these small amounts and they go, if you choose one of these, we're going to give you 50 cents off a $3 jar. A lot worse offer. They sold so many more the day they gave 50 cents off than the $2 off. Why? Analysis paralysis. It's the idea of like, there's too many choices. So you're exactly right that when it gets too noisy, we shut down. And that's why we then go, well, who can tell us what's different about this? What's in closer proximity? So it will happen. And then guess what happens? We have to reinvent. We have to do something different again. And so not everybody's at the point of using all these analytics. Not everybody's at the point of layering it into their marketing. So we're still a step ahead, but everybody's going to get there, like you are saying. And then we have to do something to take us a step ahead.
Well, in some ways, and I don't know if this is just the cycle repeating itself, but today, if you really lean into that, you can own the customer for a fraction of the cost that it'll cost you in 5 years. And once it becomes a world of noise, it's going to be a lot harder to reach them using those methods.
Correct. And if you sit still, you will be passed up very quickly too.
Okay, so I have 2 questions off of this, and I'm going to go to the one that I enjoy first more.
Okay.
Let's go back to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm turning AI loose to get the right message in front of the right person so that I can maximize my return, the first thing I'm going to do is go find a gambling addict that has money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get them to relapse. If there's not a human in the loop that's keeping an eye on that, I think there's a danger here of when you turn the AI loose, sometimes it'll do whatever it can to optimize for your goal. How do you keep the person who's got bulimia from coming and ordering a ton of wings because, that's what they want?
The short answer is you don't, that it still happens. Now there's things where I'm not sure about bulimia, but for Vegas, for gambling, if someone has flagged that they have a gambling addiction and they're actively seeking help, they can be put in a database of no contact by any of the casinos. So there are like flags in place to help with that. The same way that for like advertising to people, certain things you can't do if they're put on like a don't advertise to me list or don't call list. But in this case, it becomes like an ethical question. And no, do you know what? I struggle with my weight too. But if I walked into a restaurant, they're not going to go, oh, we're not going to feed you all these cheese curds and onion rings because you said you wanted to be on a diet. No. And it'd probably piss me off. I'd be like, give me the effing onion rings and cheese curds, please.
Well, you would have been on the diet for a while. And so,
right.
I mean, you're going to lash out.
Right. So at some point, there's the human element of what decision did I get to make or what parameters did I put around me to control it versus what the business is doing. Yes, the business is absolutely going to look at, hey, this guy spent a lot of money with us this last year, but we haven't seen him. Let's figure out if his house has been foreclosed upon or if he lost his job, which is all, again, data that exists in the world, or did he go across the street to the competitive casino? Is there a way to win them back?
Let's get a little philosophical here. Is the AI even good enough today to go exploit those, I'm a gambling addict and I'm going to get you to Vegas so you give me all your money? And if it's not, once it gets that good, will it be good enough to say, don't do anything unethical?
Yes and no. So one, it doesn't even have to be AI in order to pull data or append data and then pull a segment from that data to say, I want to go target that, right? The same way that sometimes you might get mail for your mother or father at your house and you're like, how'd they get this name? Appends aren't always correct. But if I gave someone your address and said, tell me their household income, tell me all this information about, do they still own this house? You can get all that data. You don't even need AI. And then you could say, okay, anyone who owes less than this on their house, but makes more than this amount of money, go target them. Or anyone who has had weight loss surgery, or anyone who has been to Vegas 3 or more times a year for the past 10 years, right? Based on certain information, go target these people. You can already do that. You don't even need AI. Now, you can add in layers of your targeting and your data by utilizing AI with it. Now, then the second part of your question is, does it have the ability to be ethical? I mean, that was the same argument with all these language models showing up and being open source or anyone touching them. And so anything I feed into it, you could pull out of it potentially. So if a business is feeding into AI, private, secure data, is it accessible if someone knows the right question to ask to pull out? And that is a data engineer's dream, right? To be able to try and figure out and that's where you get I say for marketing, we're ethical, honest hackers. There's still people out there that are going to try and use it for bad. And that will always exist in our world, unfortunately.
All right, so let's just go back to, high level. In the next 5 years, what do you think the single biggest way that AI is going to impact marketing in our industry?
Well, I think it's going to continue to evolve, but finding efficiencies, ability to help with labor. Now, I would like to say specifically drive-thru AI is there yet. It's not exactly where we need it to be. But it's getting there. It's getting a lot better than it was 3-4 years ago. And then the ability to streamline things. So people say, oh, well, you can have AI respond to your emails. And there are people who have gotten that done. I spent hours trying to figure out how to set it up, build links, everything. I'm still not there.
And you sit there and wonder, how much of my email am I giving away to this company?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you start to worry about who's reading your emails and how is that happening? Yeah, all of those things. So I do think we're going to start using it more like that, but it's not there yet. So I think everybody's on the precipice of are you using AI? How are you using it? Well, here's how we're using it. And I did talk to a very large company recently outside of the restaurant industry and financials. And they said they had to build their own closed LLM so that only for their employees, because the same thing, they didn't want to give away all this data, but they also knew that employees were going to use it no matter what. Even when they said you can't use AI, they found that people were still trying to use it.
Let's go back to the drive-thru side of things. I actually really like voice AI in the drive-thru. I think I've said this ad nauseum, but the Taco Bell by me has the voice AI. I always use it when I'm driving back from the airport at 11 o'clock at night. I find it to be an incredibly seamless experience and a lot less pressure when I'm ordering. I know it's not totally there yet. I hear that from a lot of people. I'm curious 2 things. Why isn't it there? And 2, what are the knock-on benefits from a marketing perspective of having voice AI work?
Well, 1, you can't always trust that the employee is going to upsell. You can always trust that the AI is going to upsell. And the AI can quickly go assess what's in your cart and what they think you should add to your cart, right?
That seems more like an operations problem, more so than a marketing opportunity.
It depends on if we're rolling out an LTO and if we want people to try that LTO, or if there's a specific better profit margin. Marketing still is involved in a lot of those things. Same with dynamic drive-through boards, right? And being able to show based on the person that drives up to the drive-through, what are you seeing on the drive-through board? Why isn't it there? The speed and the understanding of all dialects and languages It's getting there. It's really close. At FS Tech, I did a bunch of different sit-ins on different voice AI. We definitely rolled it out at Del Taco when I was there. And we found the same thing, like the speed. It was not fast enough. It was not picking everything up. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there that are just, they're laughable, where someone orders like a cheeseburger and fries and it's like, your total is $15,000. Like, it still has glitches, but it's getting there. And I liken it to when you go to Walmart and they want to force you to self-checkout, but nobody was using it for the longest time. I used it because I didn't want to have to go through. But then I think, and Walmart will probably say they don't do this, but that they closed all the lanes and put like the 2 slowest cashiers they could possibly find in the lanes where you could go and have a human check you out. And it forced everyone to self-checkout. And so now when I walk into Walmart, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to self-checkout. And liken that to employees in a restaurant. If the employee is hard to understand, if there's a delay with the employee, if it's slower with the employee, all of a sudden we're going to go, oh, it's faster to have AI. And we're okay with it. But that's still not the way in other industries. We're still getting there on if it's possible or not. But I do think there's an opportunity. There's another company, we all know, McDonald's. They use AI to introduce themselves to us. When you roll up, they'll say, hello and welcome to McDonald's. And I'll go to start talking. And I was like, oh, that was AI. And then it'll go, are you going to use the mobile app today? And to me, there's still a disconnect and like, hold on, let me find a 4-digit code. Oh, my app logged me out. I can't remember how I logged in. No, I'm not going to use it. And then all of a sudden a person jumps in. And now there's 2 different people that I felt like I was talking to.
And you can't have that discongruency, right? Like, it interrupts the flow. I kind of oscillate back and forth. My underlying thesis on AI is great AI in a restaurant, in a hospitality setting, is one that you don't realize is even there.
Correct.
Right? So the moment I'm on the drive-through and I'm talking to somebody, and then I have to have that harsh reality when somebody comes in with a different accent that I was not talking to a person, like, that makes you starkly aware of it. Now, on the flip side of that, whenever I get to the drive-through, I always kind of like to look at the menu. I like to look at the prices. What are the limited time offerings?
And you don't feel bad if it's AI.
I don't feel bad if it's AI. I feel like if I'm holding somebody up who I know is busy and juggling a million things, that I'm somehow annoying them, that I'm not ready with my order. But in AI, it's like, you can wait. All good. It gets something wrong. It actually puts up on the screen what you ordered. You could be like, no, I didn't order the chicken quesadilla. It was the Cantina chicken quesadilla, and you correct it. And that, when you kind of know it's AI, it kind of breaks that, if you don't realize it's AI, it's doing a better job mold.
Well, and I mean, you just talked about 2 different pieces of technology. You have the voice AI, but then you still have to have those boards that show you what you ordered, and they work best in tandem. But some companies will roll out voice AI, but they don't have the boards. So you're just not sure. And so you're trying to get the customer to listen, or they haven't switched to all digital, so they don't even have that ability. And so that's where I think restaurants are trying to assess, well, if I bring in voice AI, do I need like the order board? Do I need digital menu boards too? And a lot of times those are potentially 3 different companies.
Yeah. And I assume that when you talk about unifying data and marketing and being able to, let's say, increase LTOs, or how well did our LTO perform, there is something clean and programmatic about voice AI, where this offer was offered in the exact same way.
Yep.
This many guests. There's not that human glitch in between where, maybe the employees just didn't want to upsell it here and they did a bad job.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. And we're seeing a lot of different companies who power that, POS companies, although that do that, where they can track down to the employee and the keystroke, because you'll get a franchisee who says, well, I'm not performing well. It's you, corporate. It's not a me issue. And then you look at the next franchisee who's performing really well, and they're like, well, we're just different, right? Everybody feels that their city, their state, their area is different. And you start to look at the employees, the keystrokes, how long. We actually, I spoke to someone who they were finding, because operations obviously trust speed of throughput, right? So how long it was at the board, when you got to get your food. And they found that people were parking cars. And I've been to restaurants where, you pull up and they're like, your food's not ready. Can you pull ahead? Because they're trying to game the throughput, right? So now you want to track how many cars did you just park? How many people did you just move over to game your throughput? And so each one of those keystrokes, everything has to be tracked. But I think you're right too. You really take out all of that variability when AI is involved and it's the same voice or sound talking to you. That AI can speak multiple languages. So if someone starts speaking in Spanish, it's going to start speaking in Spanish. That's really exciting. Your employee might not be able to do that because I'll be the first to say as a customer, I've sat at the drive-thru and gone, what? Multiple times when I'm like, I'm not sure what you're saying because I'm having a hard time understanding.
I think the thing that really resonated with me that you said was the pulling of the cars over, because I know I've had conversations like this with operations, individuals, and they'll say, how am I going to track that? Now my guys have to mark this and that. And operationally, it's very difficult. But if you were using a voice AI is really good at logging and tracking this. How many times did you tell somebody to pull over to the side? That is a really easy thing that now all of a sudden it was going to have to be a manual operation. It just happens and you have the tracking for it.
Yeah. And you can say, hey guys, we parked this many more cars than any other corporate restaurant. What's happening? Was our food not prepped correctly? Were we not ready? How many burgers are we actually putting on the griddle, right? Like now I speak like I'm in operations. I'm not. But those are all the things that now we're seeing all these silos break down, and operations should be talking to marketing about this and technology because it all starts to work hand in hand.
Erin, this is all a lot. I mean, it's all a lot. If you are a young restaurant marketer, or even, I guess, operations, and you're watching this deluge of technology coming down the pike and everybody's trying to sell you on it, you have no idea how to manage data and complexity, but you need to head in that direction. What are the good places to start with?
That's a great question. And actually something that I woke up thinking about this morning. This is what I think about in the middle of the night because I'm crazy. Because we talked about this before, this idea that there's so many companies out there anymore and everybody's saying they do something different. And all of a sudden, and this is where I talk about tech consolidation, but all of a sudden you feel like you need to have 15 different partners. And now you have to have someone dedicated to just managing partnerships with these vendors. And that's challenging. And so I was like, how did we get here? How did we get here? And I'm answering your question in the longest form I can possibly do.
I'm loving it. Hey, take me on the journey.
How did we get here? Well, we got here because we started in the wrong spot. We come into these positions and we go, we need loyalty and we need voice AI and we need this and we need this. But what we forgot about was the customer. And when I say the customer, not just the customer experience, but what are we actually trying to achieve? And in order to achieve it, what do we need? We need data. So if we start with data at the center and we build out an entire ecosystem with the customer at the center, what do I need to know about the customer in order to drive the maximum amount of revenue, average ticket frequency, and then build out from there. Then you go look at some of these tech players in the space and you see that they actually did it the opposite way themselves as well, where they built, and there's one original POS company that they built all the different arms separately. And they said, yeah, we can provide email. Yeah, we can provide loyalty. Yeah, we can provide this. And then they tried to plug them all together and they said, oh, well, this is really challenging. And it's because they built outside in versus inside out. Now, I understand why, because I can always argue my own point, why they ended up having to do that, because we're flying the plane while we're building the plane. But if someone were really able to sit down with operations, technology, marketing, everybody, and go, let's start foundational, as if we were restarting this restaurant from day one. What's the core? How do we build out from there? Don't think about the vendors. Don't think about how much I love you or the next guy and I want to work with you. But is that the right thing to do right now? So if I start at the center, what am I trying to achieve? Thinking about my restaurant first and work out from there, the rest becomes clear. Okay, who can I find to do voice AI and digital boards together? Who's already has that partnership? Who does loyalty, POS, KDS, all those things together. Like, where can I start to consolidate? But you have to start at the center and make sure that's right for you based on what you want to know about your customer, what you're going to do with that data, and what data you actually need.
I think the scary thing there is you're asking restaurants as one of their core competencies to be not only operations, but data management. And
well, that's where you bring in tech, and you have to bring in all these people, and your technologists and your marketing people should have a data background. And I said this, I don't know, 20 years ago when someone said, the next CMO is a traditional CMO. They've done commercials, they've done this. And I was like, no, they're not. I said, in the future, CMOs all are going to have a data background, period. They are done. And they're going to even have to understand technology. And that started to happen. That's now where I believe the CEO role is going to go. You're going to pull CEOs out of the CMO and the CTO role, the chief experience officer, growth officer, whatever we want to call it. And you're going to see less of what was the traditional, you have to be a COO to go to be the CEO. Now, should marketing and technology understand operations? Absolutely. But you're going to see it more of a data-focused approach.
So 20 years ago, you said that the future CMO needs to be a data management person, someone who really understands the data. 20 years from now, what does the future CMO need to be?
They're going to have to understand the AI, the technology, still the data, and be future thinking. They'll still have to have an appreciation and understanding operations. And we're seeing it with companies already where they're a technology company that happens to serve a product.
I have wondered if in 20 years, AI is running so much of it that, the future CMO is almost more like, a character from Mad Men, where it's what's the story do I want to tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the unique human part of it? And then letting the AI do all of the nitty gritty after that.
I think you're exactly spot on. I call it emotional technology, which is like you take the tech side of it, but you still have to have that EQ. And it means that you have to find a needle in a haystack. That is someone who uses the left and the right brain, that can lean into the story and get excited about the creative and the fun and the emotion that it's going to evoke from a customer, and then understand the analytics, the data, the AI that needs to be put in to run it.
Well, while we're on the subject of humans and human conversation, let's shift to podcasts. You've got the Byte-Sized and Bossy podcast. You're an incredible host. I got to introduce you at the QSR Summit in Chicago. You're an incredible speaker. Why did you start a podcast? Did you feel like the world just needed one more podcast?
No. And there's actually a couple articles out there where they're like, what happened with technology and why are there so many podcasts? And so I had never really thought about it. I've been a guest on many podcasts, hadn't really thought about starting my own. And then Tammy Billings and I were sitting, and I like humor. So we were cracking jokes, and we were talking about tech and women in tech, and just
there are women in tech.
Fun. Yeah, women in tech. There's a couple of us. And as we're talking about it, someone goes, "You guys should have a podcast." And we're like, funny, because we don't have enough to do in life. And we started thinking about it, and I was like, Tammy goes, "Who are the women hosts of podcasts in our space?" And I went, there have to be some. Hold on. And I started thinking, I was like, I've actually never gone on a podcast hosted by a woman in the restaurant space or in the tech space. Okay. And then we started asking, like, why? And we couldn't figure it out other than women are so busy, because we still have the old idea of like raising the family, doing all these things. And then we were like, what do we talk about? And I said, I don't want a podcast where I sell something. I said, that's not exciting to me. I said, I don't even want a podcast where we ask the same questions over and over. What if we just created a podcast to lift women up, to ask them to raise their hand, to lift their voice, and really help them when they say, when you get somewhere, send the elevator back down. Let's send it down and bring these women back up and let their voices be heard and let people see them, CEOs of company, as real people, right? How did you get here? And I think a lot of times, I was just talking to someone the other day, and she goes, I had a family, a husband, I had this amazing career. And I was like, did you do it all yourself? Did you do it all yourself? Like for all the women out there that are listening, were you some sort of superwoman? And she goes, no. I said, I had a tribe. Another woman said her family moves with her wherever she goes so she can focus on her career, but also still be present with the kids and the family can be involved. But we can't do it alone. And women have been taught that we can. And that's where you see this. Women between the age of 40 and 52 are more likely to commit suicide than any other age range.
Wait, what was their age range again?
40 to 52.
Got to keep an eye on my wife.
Yeah. More likely to commit suicide. Why? Because we're told by society that we can do it all. But then now in this age, we're told, well, what are you doing for self-care? And it's almost laughable. What do you mean? I got up, I did laundry, I got the kids ready for school, I got the kids on the bus. I did 10 hours of work. I did this. I invested into others. I gave back. I joined a charity. I'm on the board of a nonprofit. I came home exhausted. I dealt with the kids, got them in bed. When am I supposed to do self-care? And the answer is you can't do it alone. You can have everything, but not at the same time. And so we get to tell that story through these amazing women who are vulnerable with us, who share whether they're single and ready to mingle, or how they got here, or where their significant other is, or how their kids and the mom guilt they felt. And that is amazing. And so it's unstructured, and it's really about bringing together amazing women. And I will tell you, 2 weeks after launching this podcast, we didn't know what we had. Also, to be fair, I, used AI and was like, how do you start a podcast? And it turns out much harder than I thought. And nor do I want to be the person behind editing the podcast, but I found a great producer. And so Tammy and I have been blessed. 2 weeks after launching, PR companies were reaching out. How do we get our executives on your podcast? And I was like,
well, I was going to say it's so hard. Not even hard. There are so few podcasts out there where somebody has a real reason for why I want to do these interviews, right? And that it really matters. It guides the whole conversation. You can tell if somebody's interested in talking with the other person. Getting on and asking the same 5 questions every week, I could not imagine doing that.
Absolutely not.
What was the biggest surprise when you started? Because this sounds perfect. Everybody should be lining up. This is going to be amazing.
I mean, that was that people started lining up, and I was like reaching out to women being like, hey, do you want to be on this podcast we're starting? And they're like, what's the angle? I was like, women. That's it. The angle is you tell your story and we get to talk to you and ask. And I always start each podcast asking someone before we start, what do you want to lean into? What do you want to lean away from? If I can find it on the internet, if you're, a secret pole dancer on the weekends, it's fair game if you didn't tell me we have to lean away from it. So you never know what you're going to learn about someone. And that's the most exciting part. But the fact that it resonated. And we've found that we're one of the fastest growing podcasts because people are writing into us saying, we've needed you. It's like sitting around having margaritas with the girls. We tell people it's unstructured. We actually got a call from.
By the way, does that go over okay with your women guests who are very put together? And I want to know what I'm going to.
Doesn't is the PR companies when they reach out to us, they'll be like, "Can you send us a list of questions?" I'm like, "No." You can listen to the podcast. You can hear what kind of questions they ask, and I tell them how we do it, and they go, "Okay." And normally everybody's on board. In fact, we got a call from the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, and they said, we do a huge women's hospitality event. 600 women come out to Madison, all food, service, hospitality. What do you think about doing Byte-Sized and Bossy on stage as the closing keynote, like recording live? And they said, we'll take care of everything. And I was like, yes. Yeah, that sounds great. I said, who are we interviewing? And they said, well, we'd like to be involved in picking the guests. I said, okay. They said, how do you feel about the CEO of Culver's? I was like, great, amazing. I feel great about it. And she's the first female CEO Culver's has ever had. And that is unbelievable. And I can't wait to tell her story. And the first thing I said was, what's her favorite beverage of choice? And they said, well, she likes whatever. And I said, oh, I'm in alcohol. And they said, oh, well, here's what she prefers. I said, great. That's what she'll be drinking on stage. And they were like, okay. I said, this is who we are. And we don't hide it. We are fun-loving, exciting, focused on lifting women up and being their authentic selves. And that's what we want her to bring too.
I'm not sure if I'm more impressed with the Wisconsin Restaurant Association asking you guys to do that on stage, or the fact that they knew what her favorite beverage was.
Well, they did through their PR agency. And that's, of course, everything gets vetted when you're the CEO of a company like Culver's. And that's really exciting. And we just interviewed, releasing today, one of the founders of Tao Group. Tao Group owns nightlife, day life, restaurants all over the world, right? They're global now and they're huge. And this woman was there for 26 years, founded this company in an age where women were rare at the executive table. And so her story is unbelievable. Her name's Kim Russin. It goes out today if you haven't had a chance to listen to it. But I encourage you to listen to these female stories, and you're going to see yourself in them as a young woman in this industry. And so to backpedal, like 3 questions before, if you're a young woman starting in this industry, listen to these women's stories. Listen to who they are and how they got to where they're at. It'll give you a lot of information.
All right. So one debate I heard at one point, and I don't have an answer to it, but I think you'd have an interesting perspective. Maybe it was 10 years ago or so, Sheryl Sandberg released whatever's Lean In. And the debate was whether that was bad advice. And the point that was made was this: should we as women learn to act like men, or should we force an industry to change and be more fair?
So I obviously have an opinion on this. And it's my opinion first and foremost, but
this is not the opinion of Byte-Sized Bossy or any of their guests.
Everybody is allowed to have their own opinion. So when I started in Vegas, I was one of the only females at the executive table. A woman who was our general counsel at the time, I had made it to the executive table, all men who were older than me. Not only was I a female, I was the youngest female and youngest person at the table. And she pulled me aside in the hallway one day, general counsel. She didn't come to the exec meetings. And she said, I need to give you some advice. And I said, sure. Petrified, right? Legal. I don't want to ever have to talk to legal. And she goes, people are going to call you a bitch. Do not change anything that you're doing. She's like, just keep pushing through. And I took that advice, and that's led me to where I'm at. Now, what I will tell you, it was petrifying. I almost cried. I pulled it together and I forced in. And that's kind of the information Kim gave us from Tao. Is at a certain point in the industry years ago, you had to, as a woman, you kind of had to bulldoze through in order to keep your seat at the table. You should not have to do that anymore. And the fact that that still sometimes happens is crazy to me. But then someone else asked me, who were your older female mentors? And I thought about it long and hard, because when someone asked me who my mentors were, I had a lot of male mentors. Where were my female mentors? And I said, I didn't have a lot. And they said, why?
Like, I got advice from a lawyer once that people recommended. Right. That was literally my mentor.
Right. And they said, well, why didn't you have more, older, seasoned female mentors? And I said, well, they had to conform to a man's world. They had to do what it took to sit at that table, and they had to act like a man at that table, and then find little ways to work around them.
And probably didn't want to be seen as colluding or, being on a different team.
Emotional, all those things. And I said, I refuse to do that. And from day one, I've refused. I have been my authentic self. I share who I am. I share that I have a family and that I work really hard, that I can hang with the guys, the girls. It doesn't matter who they are. But I'm going to call out things when I see them. I'm going to call attention to, like, hey, you don't get to call me your girl, or you don't get to do that. Or, all right, you call me your girl, I'm going to call you my boy, as long as we're good there, right? I'm not a girl and you're a man. That's not how this works. So I have always called attention to those things. And I've been fortunate enough that it's well received when I do, and I do it respectfully. But in order for things to change, you call attention to them. And we see that with every community that has an inequality. First, you create a group and you call attention to, look, we have a group, to call attention to the fact that this is an issue. So like when I first came to my first RLC, I was like one of very, very few women. And it was like the very next year they started the Women's Food Service Forum, right? And I went, oh, okay, we're creating a group. We're calling attention to the fact that there are no women here. And then eventually you don't really need the group anymore because now you do start to see equality. And I think we're at this breaking point of like, we might not need the groups pretty soon because we will see some more equality. But as women, we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to be our authentic selves. We have to bring that to the table because we bring a different viewpoint, like we talked about earlier in the episode. And as men, we need them to go, I don't expect you to act just like me. We're different and that's okay. Not just gender, ethnicities, diversity, everybody's allowed at the table. And guess what? If there aren't enough seats, scooch over. We're going to make room for another seat.
In some ways, you hope that there's no need for the group anymore and that they forget there ever was a group. And then you'll just be a little pissed off at that whole nother generation. It's like, you don't remember the things we did for you back in the day.
Eventually, I'm already seeing it with my daughters, right? They're like, why is that necessary? Like, obviously we're equal. I can wear whatever I want. I can shop on the guy's side or the girl's side, right?
Yeah. And well, first off, I'm raising 2 girls and they certainly think that. And I had this conversation with my wife last week. I was at FS Tech and I was talking with somebody, a woman, not a girl. And somehow organically it came up and I told a story of like, my favorite part of the morning is my wife and I have coffee in bed, watch CNBC and have coffee in bed every morning. And it was funny, but the woman, you just saw her shoulders relax and she's like, oh, we can talk about this. My husband, and it was like, I hadn't realized there was any tension here before that, that you were paying attention to all these different walls that could or could not be broken down. And so there still is that and an unawareness of it by most people, myself included.
Well, I think too, you just pointed out this idea that work and life collide. I spend more time working than I do in any other aspect of my life, whether I like it or not. And the idea that I'm not going to bring my whole self, including all the things that happen outside of work, to
your
work.
Authentic self is not just your work self. I mean,
correct.
I would challenge anybody that's in sales to go have a conversation and not talk about their hobbies or sports teams or some way to make the conversation more personal. And if you were a woman and that's hard to bring because all of a sudden it makes you vulnerable, I don't know. Why wouldn't I as a woman want to bring in the personal?
Because it opens up that vulnerability that we could possibly get knocked down. Because typically by the time we get to a certain level, we've been knocked down a lot. But we've kept pushing through and you start to build layers like Shrek, right? An onion has layers, a parfait has layers, whatever. You have all these layers and you start to go, do I trust that guy? Do I trust him or her? And it's not just men, it's women too. And even women talking to other women. It's like, you have to show the signal. And I encourage you, just like you did, to show the signal that I'm the real me. You can be the real you.
My co-founder Osa and my wife are working on me not being so much the real me. They've made zero progress. We could learn how to change Matt. That's top of the list. Right now, you just get authentic Matt.
That's awesome. Well, I like authentic Matt.
I appreciate that. It's funny you talk about the experience of being a woman and getting knocked down, right? Having to face adversity. And one of the things that I found as a business owner, as founding a company, is you get that a lot. You have to have thick skin. You have to go through it. I would think that being a woman and going through the business world would make you uniquely suited to being the founder of a company. Why don't we see more women founders?
It's the fastest growing business owners, business founders right now. Well, the fastest growing segment is
for all of us that bastardize statistics all the time. When the denominator's low, it's really easy to be the fastest. Right.
Yeah. 1 to 2, 100% increase. Because we're busy, because that's why we started the podcast, because no woman, I asked a conference host, right? They put together these conferences in our space. Why don't I see more women speakers? Why do I see 5 guys and 1 woman on every panel? What is happening? And I said, is it because we just don't have enough women? Because that's what everybody says. And she goes, no, it's because women don't raise their hand. And I was like, why not? And maybe we're worried that we won't be accepted. Maybe we don't want the rejection. Maybe we're just too tired. Maybe we don't know who to ask. There's so many reasons it could be, but that's what we encourage is raise your effing hand. Don't wait for someone to come to you, because that, again, as little girls, that's what we were taught was wait until you're asked, wait until you're called on. No, I'm not waiting until I want to do it. Pick me, right? It's me. And that, to your point, Sheryl Sandberg's book, one of the statistics was about men will raise their hand when they're only 60% sure, something around there, that they could do the job. Women wait until they're almost 100% sure that they could do the job before they raise their hand. No, you know what? Raise your hand. We'll figure it out. If they believe in you, you take the next step and know there's a tribe of women waiting to help you get there.
I went to the University of Iowa, and the last class we had to take in business school was basically to prepare you for the business world. And they gave a seminar basically on that. They said, you all went to the University of Iowa. Here's what we found about everybody at the University of Iowa. You will be very competent and be able to do a job. And when somebody asks you, can you do this job? They're going to say, well, I will give it my best. I think I'm equipped. There's some things I need to learn. And there'll be some kid in New Jersey that has no idea how to do it that's going to walk in and say, let me tell you what, I should be the CEO of this company. I can do this tomorrow. It's like, you all are going to have to walk in with a little bit more confidence, because the people that reject confidence tend to manifest it.
Well, and that you're not wrong. One, Midwest nice, right? I have that too. And we were taught very similar things in Illinois. And Kim
Where are you from in Illinois?
I'm from Byron near Rockford, small town, 2,000 people. We had a Burger King until McDonald's opened and put it out of business. And then I went to Illinois State. So
ISU. I'm from Champaign originally.
We were,
played hockey in Rockford all the time.
Oh, yes. The only thing cool to do in Byron was to go to Rockford. But Kim Russin.
And for everybody that doesn't know Rockford, that's not that cool.
That's why I say it's not that cool. But we had the Rockford Peaches, like the women's baseball league, right? And League of My Own. So that all came out of Rockford. Cheap Trick came out of Rockford. So we had something. But Kim Russin, the Tao Group founder, actually said that on our podcast. She said, if I had to tell a young woman what to do now, it would be confident, muster that confidence. She goes, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but you need to show up and have the same level of confidence in a room that the people around you do, and know that you have worth to be in that room. That's great advice.
Amen. I often wonder on the founder side if women are just too smart. They look at it and say, you have to be out of your mind to A, think that that's going to work. B, think you can get anybody to follow you. The degree of failure is going to be incredibly high. I'm okay. I'll let, we look at the companies that end up being multi-billion-dollar companies. And a lot of times they're not a Facebook that just happens. It's a company that literally puts it all on the line and becomes a $10 million company. And then when they have the option to make the smart move and be a good, sustainable business, they're like, you know what? We're going to bet the entire company again. And then they do it 3 more times. It's almost like the person that doubles down on their winnings in Vegas 10 times in a row and wins a ton of money. You call a great gambler. It's like, I'm not sure that's a great gambler so much as that person just got lucky.
Well, and I call it preparing to be spontaneous, right? You need the intelligence. You need to have done your risk assessment, but at a certain point, you have to take the risk, and you have to be willing to bet it and know what you could lose. Diane Hendrickson is the only female billionaire in Wisconsin. And if you look at her trajectory, how she got where she's at, she's bet it all many times. And she's an unbelievable woman to pay attention to. She basically owns Beloit, Wisconsin, but it's unbelievable to see from her supply company to her hotels and restaurants she's opened and passion projects. But she goes and takes the risk. Now, is it easier to take the risk when you have a lot of money behind you? Probably. But if you have nothing to lose, take the leap.
It's funny. My wife is so much smarter, so much more competent than I am. And the biggest difference between the two of us is I'm okay with uncertainty. She's got everything planned to a T, knows where to go, has the logistics figured out. As soon as the train breaks down, I'm like, oh yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll do A, B, C, or D. And I can imagine if you are as polished and put together and have a plan, it's a little hard to operate when everything goes to plan in your life to say, I'm going to go into a world where my plan's not going to matter. And I'm going to have to just figure everything out.
Well, and every day is a day that everything could change. It was the whole, it could be your last. Last Thursday, by the afternoon, I looked at one of my daughters. I said, you want to go to Miami tomorrow? She goes, what? I said, I don't know. You want to go to Miami? And I looked online. I was like, okay, there's a flight. There's a hotel. And she goes, what are we going to do? I was like, I don't know. I said, we're going to Google it while we're on the airplane. And so we laid in the sun. We went to Museum of Ice Cream. We walked around and shopped. And she's like, do you know where you're going? I was like, I have a phone. This way. Let's turn right. Let's see what happens down this road. And when we got down a road that I was like, maybe not down this road, let's turn that way. It was very much you have to be willing to take the risk. Otherwise, you're never going on vacation. You're never going to figure anything out.
I think that is just such a lovely sentiment. We're going to leave it right there. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, if anybody wants to find you, what's the best way?
Email's just my name, Erin Levzow @gmail. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok, although you just see a lot of videos of me dancing with my daughter.
And this podcast.
Byte-Sized Bossy. Follow the podcast on this podcast as well. Send up a smoke signal. You can find me on any social platform one way or another.
Well, Erin, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on. Thank you.
Thank you.